You can feel it, can't you? That strange hum beneath reality, the quiet trembling in your soul that whispers, something is shifting. Not out there in the world's noise, but inside you, deep, silent, undeniable. There comes a moment in a human life when the stage lights dim, the costumes fall, and the script you've been reciting begins to taste like sand in your mouth. Suddenly, every conversation feels artificial, every goal feels borrowed, every smile feels rehearsed. Society moves like a wind-up toy, ticking and clattering and performing its routines. And for the first time, you realize you are no longer part of it. This is not depression. This is not isolation. This is awakening. And awakening is not loud, not glamorous, not adorned with halos or spiritual slogans. It is raw. It is quiet. It dismantles you from the inside out. And so you begin to step back, not dramatically, not as a protest. You simply fade. You watch as people argue about things that don't matter, chase achievements that disintegrate the moment they are held, trade authenticity for applause. You watch the dance you once participated in, the urgency, the pretending, the performance of importance. And you were asleep, this world felt normal, busy, purposeful. Now it feels like a dream that everyone still believes is real. A dream they defend with seriousness, outrage, and pride, the way sleepers defend the logic of their dreams until morning breaks and reveals the absurdity of it all. And the strangest thing happens when you wake. You can no longer stand the noise. Every crowded room feels like static. Every social script feels like a costume you can no longer wear. Every interaction asks you to shrink just a little, betray yourself just a little, pretend just a little. And your being refuses. You don't withdraw because you dislike people. You withdraw because something inside you has outgrown the theater. There is a moment, subtle, unmistakable, where the soul refuses to continue participating in illusions. You try to force yourself back into the usual patterns, but it feels like trying to breathe underwater. Your body tightens, your chest contracts, your spirit whispers, not here, not anymore. You begin noticing the machinery behind the world, the emotional automation, the psychological inertia. People conversing not to connect, but to fill silence. People seeking approval, not truth. People chasing distractions rather than introspection. It is like watching humans carrying mirrors but never looking into them. And at first it is disorienting. You think, am I breaking because the world you once knew begins dissolving? The ambitions you once held feel foreign. The opinions you once defended feel flimsy. The identity you once cherished feels like a costume stitched together from expectations and memories that don't belong to you anymore. This is the great inner exodus. The soul peeling itself away from the identity the world manufactured for you. You become a stranger to the life you used to inhabit, a visitor in a civilization you once called home. Every instinct in you says, step back, breathe, watch. There is no anger in this distance, no bitterness, only clarity, only awareness, only a growing realization that the life society trains us for, the chase, the noise, the constant doing, is not living, but distraction disguised as purpose. You notice how busy people are, not because life demands it, but because stillness terrifies them. Silence threatens to introduce them to themselves, and many would rather drown in noise than face their own depths. But you have already been touched by the quiet. You have felt that vastness inside you that does not need validation, applause, or explanation. And once you feel that, once you taste the truth that you are not the identity you were handed, but the awareness observing it, there is no going back. You begin to realize something ancient. The more conscious you become, the less company you require, not because you are above anyone, but because so much conversation is camouflage, so much interaction is escape. So much of society's energy is built around avoiding the very silence that has become your sanctuary. You see through the frantic running, the loud arguing, the endless consuming, not with judgment, but with quiet understanding. For you have run too, You have escaped too. You have sought distraction too. But now the spell has broken, and so you drift outward, not lonely, but sovereign, not abandoned, but liberated, not lost, but returning to yourself. People may say you are distant, strange, withdrawn, but how can you explain to them that you are not disappearing? You are reappearing. Not to them, not to the world, but to yourself. Your withdrawal is not a retreat from life. It is a return to reality. A reality beneath the noise, beneath the identities, beneath the endless human drama. Something inside you is dissolving. The old self, the mask, the identity assembled from cultural noise and personal history. It feels like dying because in a way it feels like losing yourself until you realize the one you are losing was never you. And in that space, that vast and terrifying and beautiful inner space, you begin to feel a new presence rising. A self that does not need approval to exist. A self not assembled from memory, but born from awareness. A self untouched by opinion, untouched by fear, untouched by the dream of society. You realize solitude is not emptiness. It is fullness without interruption. Silence is not absence. It is presence without distortion. And so you sit with yourself, not because you are hiding from the world, but because you have finally discovered the one person you were always trying to find within it. This phase is subtle, slow, holy. You are not disappearing. You are ripening. You are not lost. You are shedding. The world will not understand this stage. It will try to pull you back with familiar chains, guilt, obligation, identity. It will tell you you're changing, you're quiet, you're distant. You are, because a soul that has seen the truth cannot pretend anymore. You are not meant to be who you were. You are becoming who you actually are. And this beginning, this silent unraveling of illusion, is the most powerful step a human being can take. You didn't choose it. It chose you. And now the only direction is forward, inward, deeper. The world asks you to perform. Awakening asks you to remember. And slowly, quietly, unmistakably, you are remembering. But remembering is not gentle work. It is not a spiritual massage, not a comforting mantra. It is excavation. It pulls up the roots of who you thought you were and lays bare the soil of your being. And in that exposed earth, truth begins to sprout wild and uncontrollable. The more you awaken, the more illusions crumble. You notice inner storms, whispers of old fears, ghosts of identities you once wore like sacred armor. Parts of you cling to the familiar because the familiar once kept you safe. But safety is no longer your currency. Authenticity is it, so a silent war begins within you, a war between who you were trained to be and who you are here to become. There are days where clarity feels like light, sharp, golden, undeniable. And there are days where awakening feels like you are dissolving into mist, where you cannot tell if you are losing yourself or finally finding the edges of your true shape. You look at your life, the friendships formed around your old self, the conversations built on mutual dreaming, the goals that once made your heart race, and they feel like fossils now. They were real once, but life has moved on. Consciousness has evolved. You have crossed a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. People sense the shift, even if they don't understand it. They say things like, "You've changed," as if why? Oh, we're supposed to stay frozen in time, loyal to an older version of yourself so that others could remain comfortable. They call you distant, quiet, hard to read. They look for the person you used to be and cannot find them. Of course they can't. You can't find them either. That chapter has ended, and you do not read backwards anymore. You witness your old world dissolve like sand falling through water. Workplaces feel like rituals of unconscious repetition. Social spaces feel like stages. Conversations feel like echoes of lives still trapped in cycles you have stepped out of. It is not judgment. It is distance born from clarity. You do not think yourself better. You simply feel different. Like you are walking in a direction most people have not noticed exists. And yes, there is grief in this. Awakening carries a eulogy, not for the world, but for your old self. For the friendships built on sleep, for the ambition fueled by ego, for the dreams born in ignorance. You do not resent them, you thank them. They carried you where you needed to go. But gratitude does not mean returning. There comes a subtle moment where forcing yourself to stay in old environments feels like suffocating. You do not break ties, they simply loosen. People drift. Conversations fade, invitations stop coming, and rather than fear the silence, you welcome it like rain after drought. In solitude, you begin to hear your own voice again. Not the voice of conditioning, not the voice of social expectation, but the voice beneath all voices. The one that whispers in moments of stillness. The one you ignored because you were busy performing life instead of experiencing it. Now you can finally hear it, and it does not speak in panic or urgency. It speaks in knowing, soft, steady, ancient. It says, be patient. Let the old world fall away. You are not disappearing, you are preparing. Preparation is quiet. It happens in the background, unnoticed. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical, just slow rewiring. You notice tiny things first, the way you breathe around different people, the way your body tightens in certain environments, the way silence feels kinder than forced conversation. You realize awakening is not an idea, it is a physiological transformation. Your nervous system changes, your perception shifts, your tolerance for superficiality evaporates. You begin to see through words, through smiles, through postures. You no longer react to noise, you observe it. You no longer drown in emotion. You sit at the bottom of it, watching currents move around you. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming clear, and clarity has a price, distance. You don't chase people anymore, not because you don't care, but because you understand that truth does not chase. Awareness does not persuade. Light does not force itself into closed eyes. You used to fear being alone. Now solitude feels like oxygen. Not because the world is bad, but because your inner world has become richer. You are not isolating. You are incubating. You are not avoiding life. You are studying it from a vantage point most never reach because they never stop running. There are moments where you doubt yourself. Moments where silence feels heavy. Where the absence of familiar noise makes the ego tremble. It whispers, go back, be who you were, play the role, don't make life harder. But you cannot obey it anymore. That voice once ruled you, it was your compass, your shield, your prison. Now it sounds like static, old programming, a ghost script. Awakening is not a straight line. There are spirals, returns, pauses, regressions. There are mornings where the sky feels made of meaning and nights where the world feels alien. As if you are visiting a dimension you once believed you belonged to. But the path does not reverse. Every doubt becomes understanding. Every silence becomes insight. Every shedding becomes freedom. Slowly, quietly, you begin to sense new life forming inside you. Not the life society trained you for, but the life your soul has been whispering about since childhood. The one buried beneath expectation, fear, conditioning. You feel curiosity returning, not about the world humans built, but about existence itself, about consciousness, mystery, purpose, about the space between thoughts, about the moment before identity forms and the moment after it dissolves. You begin to notice beauty again, not the beauty fed to you by culture, but the raw kind, the stillness of dawn, the texture of silence, the way light moves through dust, the intelligence woven into chaos, the poetry of ordinary existence. And this beauty does not demand anything from you. It simply invites you to notice it. You start to realize how little you need, how little truly matters, how freedom is not gained through accumulation, but through release. You shed beliefs like old skin. You shed habits like brittle leaves. You shed identities like clothes that never suited you. And in this shedding, you do not become less. You become spacious, capable of holding more truth, more presence, more being. People who are still asleep may see your simplicity and think you have lost something. But you know better. You did not lose anything. You removed what was never yours. Awakening is not about gaining enlightenment. It is about removing illusion. Not about becoming someone, but about remembering you never were the someone you thought. And so you walk quietly through life now, neither eager to be seen nor afraid of being invisible, shaped not by applause but by awareness, guided not by fear but by inner knowing. Nothing in you forces anymore. Nothing in you fights to belong. You do not push the river. You watch how it moves and follow the current of truth wherever it leads. Transformation has no grand finale here, only continuation, deepening, unfolding. The journey is not to change the world outside, but to awaken so fully inside that the world cannot pull you back into the dream again. You are not finished. You are simply farther than before. And the road ahead is not lonely, only quieter, because what waits there is not noise but truth. And because the world can no longer pull you back into the dream so easily, something remarkable begins to happen. You start observing life instead of reacting to it. Every moment becomes a window into truth. Conversations feel like energy exchanges instead of noise. You see the roots behind behavior, the wounds behind anger, the insecurity beneath arrogance, the fear hiding under confidence. People speak and you no longer hear their words. You hear their subconscious, the stories they are still imprisoned in, the masks they are terrified to put down. This is not superiority. This is sensitivity sharpened by awareness. You do not judge them. If anything, your heart softens. You recognize in them who you once were, their confusion, their struggles, their inner wars. You know those battles intimately. You remember how exhausting it was to pretend you were okay, to carry identities that felt heavy, to chase validation as if your worth depended on another pair of eyes. Remember trying to be understood, trying to fit in, trying to keep up with the world asleep at the wheel. Now you no longer need the world to understand. You don't crave recognition. You don't fear misunderstanding. You realize that truth has never needed an audience. Awakening has never been a performance. It is a quiet revolution, inside you, not outside. And as this understanding deepens, a gentle humility grows inside your soul. You no longer feel the urge to argue, to prove, to correct. Silence becomes your ally. Stillness becomes your power. You understand that people don't wake up through pressure. They wake up through timing, through inner readiness, through their own pain, their own experiences, their own surrender. So you stop forcing. You let life teach them just as life taught you. You begin to notice a strange freedom. You don't take things personally anymore. Criticism feels like wind passing by. Praise feels like noise you no longer chase. Opinions of others dissolve like fog because you have seen that most people speak from their wounds, not their wisdom. When someone misunderstands you, you don't rush to defend yourself. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't react, you observe. The ego inside you is no longer driving. It is simply watching in the back seat. Quiet confidence replaces the need for validation. Inner certainty replaces external approval. Self-trust replaces the craving to be believed. And this is where a new layer of awakening begins, one deeper, subtler, almost invisible from the outside. You start to see how life always reflected your inner state, how chaos outside mirrored chaos inside, how every loss was guidance, every betrayal was redirection, every disappointment was purification. Life was not punishing you, it was sculpting you. Pain was not working against you, it was working through you, shaping you into someone awake enough to hold truth without breaking. You finally understand why you had to break first. Not to be destroyed, but to be emptied, not to collapse, but to be rebuilt, not to suffer, but to awaken. There comes a moment, quietly, unexpectedly, where gratitude emerges for every hardship. The moments where you felt abandoned suddenly look like initiation. The moments where you felt lost now appear as sacred detours. You realize the universe never left you. It simply removed everything you were holding on to so you could hold truth instead. Even loneliness becomes sacred. In hindsight, it was the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming, but awakening does not grant immunity from life's storms. It changes your posture toward them. Instead of being swallowed by fear, you breathe through uncertainty. Instead of clinging to control, you surrender to flow. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this trying to teach me? And in that shift, suffering transforms into learning. Emotional storms become purification. Confusion becomes expansion. Silence becomes revelation. Every experience, even the uncomfortable ones, begins to feel purposeful, intentional, intelligent. This does not make life easier. It makes it meaningful. As you move through this phase, you notice your relationship with time changes. You stop rushing. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop trying to predict every turn. You trust the process in a way you never thought possible. You don't need to know how things will unfold. You simply know they will. You feel guided, not in a dramatic, mystical way, but in a grounded, steady, intimate way. Like life is whispering to you, showing you signs, aligning things quietly behind the scenes. Because you trust more, your nervous system softens, your mind becomes clear, your heart becomes lighter. You realize presence is not something to practice. It is your natural state once fear dissolves. Suddenly, the simplest moments feel sacred again. Breathing fresh air, hearing birds in the morning, watching light enter a room, feeling your heartbeat in your chest. You are not chasing life anymore. You are living it. This shift confuses those who still run in circles of urgency. They may think you have become slow, passive, detached from ambition. They don't understand that you didn't lose ambition. You refined it. You stopped running toward noise and started walking toward purpose. Your goals are quieter now, but deeper. Your desires are fewer, but truer. You no longer seek success to be seen. You seek meaning to feel alive. People around you might feel threatened by your peace because they cannot understand what they cannot control. They may label you strange, distant, arrogant, mysterious, but you do not flinch because awakening has taught you one thing most never learn. It is not your job to be understood. It is your job to be authentic. And authenticity often looks rebellious in a world addicted to imitation. You start protecting your energy intuitively. You listen to your body before you listen to obligation. You say no without guilt, yes without fear. You create space for what matters and release what doesn't. Not because you are cold, but because you are clear. You stop explaining your boundaries because real boundaries don't need justification. They need consistency. Freedom becomes simple. Silent mornings, honest conversations, meaningful work, genuine presence, depth over noise, truth over comfort, alignment over approval. Nothing external can give you what inner alignment gives you. And once you taste that alignment, you do not trade it for anything. Not relationships, not money, not status, not comfort. This is where many people misunderstand awakening. They assume it means leaving the world behind, abandoning ambition, detaching from life. But the opposite is true. Awakening makes you more alive, more engaged, more capable of loving, more capable of seeing beauty in what others overlook. You don't escape life. You participate in it consciously. You stop seeking heaven in the clouds and start creating heaven inside your presence. You realize spirituality is not found in escape. It is found in mastery. Not in running from shadows, but in understanding them. Not in rejecting the world, but in seeing through it. Not in being special, but in being real. And slowly life begins to reflect your inner shift. You attract quieter souls, more honest conversations, deeper connections, fewer people, but truer people. The world does not get softer. Your strength grows. People don't treat you better. You choose better company. Life does not stop testing you. You stop identifying with the test. You are not finished. You are evolving. Layer by layer, breath by breath, silence by silence. What once felt like isolation now feels like incubation. What once felt like loss now feels like clearing. What once felt like confusion now feels like transformation in real time. Your becoming is not dramatic. It is steady. Your power is not loud. It is calm. Your awakening is not a destination. It is a continual deepening. And though the world still pulls at you, you no longer feel compelled to answer every noise. You know where you're going now, even if you cannot see the entire path. For the first time, uncertainty doesn't scare you, it excites you. The unknown no longer represents danger. It represents possibility. You are not chasing life. You are walking alongside it, not ahead, not behind, aligned. The old world still exists, but you no longer belong there, not because you are better, but because you are different. Not because you escaped, but because you awoke. Not because you climbed, but because you remembered. And memory, true soul memory, never fades again. It only deepens, expands, sharpens you into someone the old you would barely recognize, but would admire without understanding. This is the quiet power that arrives after the storm of awakening, the power not to dominate, but to remain, not to shout, but to know, not to force, but to align, not to prove, but to exist truthfully. And in that existence, you are no longer surviving life. You are participating in the miracle of being awake. And as life continues, you begin noticing that your silence is not empty. It is filled with intelligence. Your loneliness is not lack, it is space. Your stillness is not absence, it is presence. People wonder how you stay calm in chaos, how you remain grounded when everything shakes, how you carry peace even when the world storms. They cannot see the battles you have already fought within yourself, the nights where your soul burned, the moments where your identity shattered, the times you dissolved into nothingness just to emerge as something real. You do not explain those battles. You do not need to. Truth never begs to be believed. You start living not from memory, but from awareness. You begin trusting sensations more than opinions, intuition more than logic, reality more than narrative. Life becomes less about what you think and more about what you know without knowing how you know. This inner clarity becomes your compass, more reliable than any map the world hands you. You realize the greatest skill a human can learn is not controlling life, but listening to it. In this phase, relationships transform. You stop attaching out of fear and start connecting out of recognition. You no longer cling, you no longer chase. You allow. People who resonate stay. Those who don't gently fall away, not in anger, but in natural evolution. You don't fight for space in anyone's life. You don't audition for love. You don't shrink to fit. You are done performing. The right people feel like alignment, not negotiation. When you speak, it is not to impress, it is to express. When you walk away, it is not rejection, it is self-respect. When you choose silence, it is not weakness. It is wisdom deciding where energy belongs. Your reality shifts. The world becomes less hostile, less heavy, not because the world changed, but because you are no longer interpreting reality through wounds. You rise above reaction, above the old reflexes, above the need to fight every battle. You understand that peace is not what happens when life is quiet. Peace is what happens when your soul is, and this inner peace starts affecting everything. Your thoughts soften, your body heals, your breath deepens, your vision sharpens. You start living by choice, not conditioning. the world loses its power to hypnotize you again. Noise cannot swallow you. Fear cannot command you. You see illusions before they have a chance to seduce you. You recognize projections, manipulations, psychological traps, emotional games, not with cynicism, but with clarity. Awakening doesn't make you bitter. It makes you immune. There's a particular strength in you now, the strength to not engage in battles beneath your purpose, the strength to not waste words on minds closed by ego, the strength to not follow crowds running nowhere, the strength to stand alone when truth demands it, and slowly your inner self, the one you buried under expectations, fears, labels, and history, emerges like an ancient memory returning home. This self doesn't rush. This self doesn't chase. This self doesn't beg. This self owns its existence. Life begins feeling less like a race and more like a sacred journey, a remembering, a returning, a refinement. And in this remembering, you understand something profound. Awakening is not an escape from the world. It is the revelation that you were never in the world. The world was always inside you. Reality was never outside. It was always filtered through the state of your consciousness. When consciousness shifts, life shifts with it. You don't change reality by fighting it. You change it by awakening beyond it. And now you stand at a new edge, not an ending, but a threshold, a doorway to a life not built by fear, but sculpted by awareness. You carry a calm that does not collapse under pressure, a clarity that cuts through illusions, a softness that no longer equals weakness, a strength that does not require aggression. The storm that once lived inside you has become a sky, and in that sky storms appear, but they pass. Thoughts arise, but they do not define. Emotions move, but they do not drown. Life shifts, but you remain. This is the maturity awakening brings. Not perfection, but presence. Not certainty, but trust. Not answers, but awareness. And now something incredible happens. You begin not only to live differently, you begin to create differently. Your words carry depth. Your presence shifts rooms. Your silence speaks louder than noise. Your being becomes me. Thy scene for those who are ready. You don't save people. You remind them. You don't lead people. You illuminate. You don't preach. You exist in truth, and existence becomes the teaching. Because real transformation never needs force. It needs frequency, and you have become that frequency, powerful conclusion. There will come a day soon where you look back and realize the person you once were no longer exists. Not because you killed them, but because you outgrew the version of yourself built by fear, by survival, by social hypnosis. You shed that identity like old skin and stepped into your real form, not as the world taught you to be, but as consciousness sculpted you to become. You arrived at yourself, and this arrival is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not seek applause. It is quiet, steady, unshakable, like a mountain that has remembered its weight, like a flame that knows it cannot be extinguished, like a soul that finally knows where it stands in the infinite. You do not fear losing anything now, because you have discovered the one thing that cannot be taken, your awakened self. You walk forward not with certainty of what life will bring, but with certainty of who you are while walking through it. That is the ultimate freedom. To meet life not as a seeker, not as a survivor, but as awareness itself. Your journey is not over, it is beginning, consciously. And the world will not always understand you, but that no longer matters. Because awakening was never meant to make you understood. It was meant to make you whole, so you rise. Not above others, but beyond the person you used to be. You stand. Not in arrogance, but in truth. You live. Not to please the world, but to express the soul that finally remembers itself. And from this moment forward, your life becomes not a repetition of the past, but a creation of the awakened self you have become, not waiting, not chasing, just being fully, consciously, unapologetically, you are awake. And now life can truly begin.